That is right. Mr. Dale Schafer is a 35-year practicing attorney with 23 years in the California cannabis space. And Dale is also a former member of Club Fed when he served over 52 months for cultivation with intent to distribute, making him a true criminal justice lawyer. That's right. It is Dale Schafer.
Hey, good morning, everybody. My story today involves Rico and not our dopest dad who's having trouble getting on the screen here. There you go. Rico's back. This involves a lawsuit that was brought under Rico in federal court, and they got their asses kicked. And just to set this up, this was written by an attorney who's a partner in a law firm. So the story, if you read it, runs Our rule is issue, rule, application, conclusion. It's called the IREC rule. The issue here is, does someone have standing to sue under RICO if they're running a pot business and their partner fucks them and they sue them for being fucked by a partner, which happens in a lot of business. And the court said, no. So to set this up, back in 1970, when the Controlled Substances Act was passed, they also passed a law called RICO, the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. And they have some overlap here. And under RICO, if you are involved in a pattern of racketeering activity, this was directed towards the mafia, but it turns out they also included drugs. So if you're engaged in a drug enterprise, and surprise, surprise, in the federal court, any cannabis business license in California is, under the federal law, a drug enterprise. Okay. And if you go into court seeking to have some part of the property that was realized by running this drug enterprise, and you ask the court to intervene, they tell you you don't have standing because you have not been damaged in the eyes of the law. Now, that's where this gets kind of creepy, because in California, we're setting all this stuff up, and it's a regular business to the extent we can have it. But in the eyes of the federal government, we go clear back to 1970, the Controlled Substances Act. Marijuana is a Schedule I drug, strictly prohibited. Under RICO, you're running a drug enterprise. Okay, so here's what happened. This woman, and you can look up her name. I don't want to trash anybody in public here, but she was running what looks to me to be a nonprofit mutual benefit or something like that during the 420 days here in California. She set up a corporation, and we used to do management services agreements so people could, not get stuck with 280E, blah, blah, blah. So Prop 64 passes, and she expands her business. Okay, she brings on a partner, and the partner turns out to be a problem. Surprise, surprise, a lot of problems with partners in this industry. I don't know exactly what this partner was doing, but she accused him of wire fraud and money laundering, things like that. And of course, what happens a lot is they bring pounds in or run them out through the back door. But anyway, they had a falling out, they call it. We call them pissing matches when I come in trying to solve these problems for corporations. And she sued this guy in federal court for RICO violations. Okay. And it's a fairly simple answer in the federal courts. This is all illegal. Don't even come in here and ask for anything. We're going to kick your ass out. Okay. And that's what happened here. She went in to justify this. Her position was the state determines what's a conflict with federal law. And they said, no, the intent of Congress in this was to stop all drug activity that involved interstate commerce. Okay. So he said, if you derive a business or income from these racketeering activities, we don't even want to hear from you. Now, that is sort of along the same lines what happened a couple of years back when farmers up in Oregon tried to sue under RICO for their neighbors having a pot farm, and it was going to cause all these terpene interference with their crops and bullshit like that. That one was allowed to go to a finder of fact because they weren't running a drug enterprise. They had property interests they could protect, and it turned out they couldn't prove that they'd been damaged, so they lost. But I think the bigger picture here is that we still have a federal court system that unless you put a gun to their head, like we have with the Rohrabacher-Farr continuing resolution, you can't spend money. You walk in with a cannabis activity case, you're liable to get your ass stomped. Okay, so the bad news is the federal government still looks at all of this as just criminal activity. With that, let's bounce it back up the group and see how many footballs we could kick around the soccer field here.